Dear friends, welcome to another episode of Geopolitical and Military News. In this video, we will discuss what many politicians declare to be the new axis of evil, composed of Russia, Iran, China, and North Korea. But what exactly would this imply, and why are the United States so apprehensive about this grouping? In a statement made a few days before the vote in the United States Congress, which approved a $95 billion military assistance package for Ukraine, Taiwan, and Israel, Republican Congressman Mike Johnson, leader of the Republican Majority Congress, stated that Russia, Iran, China, and North Korea are nations governed by dictators and together form the new axis of evil. A similar rhetoric was adopted by Michael McCaul, also a Republican congressman, who in a statement made a few days before the vote in Congress, mentioned Russia, Iran, and China as the axis of evil. However, why all this mention of the axis of evil, and why are the United States so concerned about this coalition of dictator-ruled countries? The first time a leader used the term axis of evil was in January 2002, with then-President George W. Bush referring to Iran, Iraq, and North Korea, governments that, in his view, sponsored international terrorism and sought to obtain weapons of mass destruction. During Vladimir Putin's first two terms, Russia always maintained very good relations with the United States, with President Bush often referring to Putin as a sincere friend. Therefore, in the American view, the group of countries in the so-called axis of evil did not include Russia. After the invasion of Iraq in 2003, which resulted in the fall of Saddam Hussein, Iraq was removed from the group, leaving only Iran and North Korea. In the early 21st century, China was still taking its first steps in a broad process of modernization and growth that also included its armed forces. Therefore, at that time, China was not seen as a threat to the United States and its allies in the Pacific. It was only very recently, mainly after the start of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, that Russia and China began to be mentioned by American politicians as members of the so-called axis of evil. It is obviously a completely subjective concept, so much so that for Iran, the axis of evil is formed by the United States, Israel, and the European countries that imposed sanctions against Tehran. In other words, each side has its own axis of evil, the composition of which varies as the geopolitical dynamics in the world change. In the specific case of the axis of evil in the view of the United States, Russia, China, and Iran act together, with Congressman Michael McCaul making this very evident in a statement made a few days ago. According to the congressman, Vladimir Putin only invaded Ukraine after the clumsy, disastrous, and dishonorable withdrawal of the United States from Afghanistan, a withdrawal that allowed the return of Taliban oppression after nearly 20 years. This withdrawal sent a signal of weakness to the world, a signal that Washington is not so committed to ensuring the security and defense of its allies. But for Congressman McCaul, Putin only made his final decision to invade after meeting with Xi Jinping during the 2022 Winter Olympics, in early February. Putin and Xi Jinping met for long hours behind closed doors, with the congressman and several other analysts believing that it was there, during that meeting, that Putin made the fateful decision to invade Ukraine. A meeting that may have served for China to give Russia assurances of non-intervention and economic and diplomatic support, which is exactly what China is doing at this moment with Russia. In the American view, it was these two elements, the message of weakness transmitted by the United States with the abandonment of Afghanistan in 2021, and mainly the meeting with Xi Jinping in February 2022, that led Putin to advance with the start of the war, characterizing, for the United States, a clear collusion between those two countries, aiming at a war of aggression and conquest. Iran is placed in this group, first because of its ballistic missile and nuclear weapons program, and second, because, according to the United States government, it also acts in collusion with Russia. For the United States, Iran is only attacking Israel because it directly interests Vladimir Putin, as it will force Washington to divert its attention and resources to support another important ally, which is exactly what the United States are doing now, sending billions of dollars to reinforce Israeli defenses and deploying a massive military contingent to the region to face direct and indirect attacks from Iran. In the case of North Korea, whenever dictator Kim Jong-un launches a missile or threatens to attack the South, the United States are obliged to intervene, either directly through large and expensive military exercises in the region or indirectly through support and military and financial reinforcement of its allies in the Pacific. And that's why, specifically for the United States, the axis of evil is formed by Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea. But as I said, it is a completely subjective concept, so basically everyone has their own axis of evil to meet their interests and their geopolitical vision of the world. If you liked the video, leave your like and subscribe to help the channel grow. Until next time.